You wouldn't afford your. Sorry about that. So stay up with that chair, yeah. Thank you. Sorry about that. Just. Yeah, thank you.
You've got enough juice then, we're good, yeah.
Yeah, just the cable or the back cables.
Ready. Live view on M12.
Yep. This is what
Good afternoon, everybody. I have, as you can imagine, done a lot of thinking over the last few days, and I am clear that I have to do what's right for my country, Scotland. This isn't easy, and it's not without pain, as I have a genuine friendship with Keir Starmer. But my first priority and my first loyalty is to my country, Scotland. And I am not willing to sacrifice Scotland's NHS, our schools, our communities, our towns, cities, villages and islands to a third decade of an SNP government. That's why the distraction needs to end and the leadership in Downing Street has to change. It is so obvious that we desperately need change in Scotland. And in 3 months' time, the opportunity to get rid of a failing SNP government is one that is too important to be missed. We cannot allow the failures at the heart of Downing Street to mean the failures continue here in Scotland. Because the election in May is not without consequence for the lives of Scots. We have an NHS crisis where too many Scots can't access the treatment they need and when they need it. We have a housing emergency with more than 10,000 Scottish children homeless right now. And we have too many young people not feeling safe at school or on our streets or missing out on the opportunities they deserve. And we have an SNP government that is addicted to secrecy and cover-ups with devastating consequences. That's why I have to be honest about failure wherever I see it. The situation in Downing Street is not good enough. There have been too many mistakes. They promised they were going to be different, but too much has happened. Have there been good things? Of course there have, many of them, but no one knows them and no one can hear them because they're being drowned out. That's why it cannot continue. I am proud to have played my part in removing a Tory government that was doing so much damage to Scotland. And having a Labour government matters. I am proud of my Scottish Labour MPs who did the hard work, persuaded our fellow Scots, ran a historic and successful campaign, and who have spent every day since fighting for Scotland's interests. I'm proud of these Scottish Labour ministers serving at every level of government, delivering for Scotland. I want them to stay in government, because I said right at the start that my first priority and my first loyalty is to my country, Scotland. That's why they must continue to defend and protect Scotland's interests. Keir Starmer is a decent man, and it is no secret that I have always got on well with him, and he has dedicated his life to public service. I have also dedicated myself to public service, and I need to decide what I'm willing to accept and what I'm willing to tolerate. The people of this great country, Scotland, are crying out for competent government, for transparency, for honesty and for delivery. They want to see politics that is open and accountable. They want to see leaders who put the national interest before themselves. That is the standard I will always apply. In 3 months, we have an election that must be about one thing and one thing only: Scotland. That is my duty, that is my priority, that is my loyalty, and that is Scotland's choice. Thank you. I'll open up for some questions. I'll take Glenn Campbell from the BBC.
Sarwar, just spell out why you want change and why you think that will end what you call distraction. Wouldn't it just plunge your party and the country into further chaos as a new leader is sought?
I think the reality is, Glenn, that there are so many achievements of a UK Labour government, so many good things that are happening across our country. But if you ask people, they can't see them and they can't hear them because the leadership in Downing Street has become a huge distraction. And I've had to think about my own priority, and my own priority, my first loyalty, is to Scotland. And Scotland needs to fundamentally take the opportunity for change in Scotland in 3 months' time.
But who do you want to replace Keir Starmer? And if that
Let me be
a leadership contest, won't that cause months of chaos?
Let me be really clear. I am not supporting or backing any alternative or any candidate. This is not about MPs versus MSPs. This is about what is right for Scotland. And it is for the UK Cabinet, it is for Downing Street, it is for the UK Labour Party to decide any process, any timeline, and what comes next. Colin Mackay from STD.
You told me on Thursday you thought that Keir Starmer would still be Prime Minister come the election in May. What's changed since Thursday?
Well, what I said to you, Colin, was that yes, he could, but we needed answers. And I think, to be honest, the answers and the issues are much broader now. There have been too many incidences where the wrong judgment calls have been made. There have been too many mistakes, and that is distracting from the vital work of government, and it's also distracting from the big choice that people in Scotland have to make in 3 months' time, and that's why I think it needs to change in Downing Street.
Have you told the Prime Minister about this statement before making it?
Yes, I spoke to the Prime Minister earlier today, and I think it's safe to say that he and I disagree. Conor Gillies from Sky.
And Sarwar, one of your own Scottish Labour MPs is reacting to what you're saying here, calling it idiotic, immature, incoherent and self-defeating. It's playing right into your opponent's hands, according to that senior figure. Have you done this to blame the Prime Minister if you failed to become First Minister in May? And second of all, if you don't mind, last year you called Peter Mandelson an old friend when it was public knowledge that he had links with Jeffrey Epstein. How do we take you seriously in cleaning up politics when one of your own Scottish Labour MSPs is best friends with a convicted paedophile?
Well, let me first say that the approach of briefings I have always called them. And that's why I'm not taking the approach of briefing, I'm not taking the approach of talking to journalists in private. I'm being upfront and honest about my view and my first priority and my first loyalty being to Scotland. And that's why I'm doing what I believe is best for Scotland. And let me also be clear that Peter Mandelson is not someone or something I want to be associated with. I met him in his capacity as the ambassador ambassador to the US because that was the right thing to do in Scotland's interest. But should he have been appointed the ambassador? No. Should he be a member of the Labour Party? No. Should he have a seat in the House of Lords? He shouldn't. And it's right now that he is investigated by the police. Peter Smith from ITV.
Who else did you speak to about delivering this speech today? Who knew that this was coming?
Look, I've obviously spoken to those in my own team. I have had many conversations with many figures across the UK Labour family, both in government and out. And I've been really honest with them about my view, the situation we're in, how I believe this is intolerable, and that I am going to do what I think is right for my country, Scotland. I could have chose to stay quiet, to keep the head below the parapet, and just carry on as if everything was fine for the next 3 months. But my first loyalty and my first priority is to Scotland. And Scotland so desperately needs a different kind of government in Scotland. I mean, you think about some of the things I've been speaking about in the last few weeks. We have had the most intolerable cover-up at the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital, where lives were lost, families were lied to, staff were gaslit. Do we really want to sacrifice Scotland's NHS for a third decade of the SNP? We have children that are feeling unsafe in the classroom or on the streets because of knife crime or the challenge of mobile phones and social media. Do we want a government that's going to stand up on those issues and fight young people's corner? Do we want to sacrifice another generation to SNP government? No. I'm not willing to sacrifice Scotland and Scotland's services and Scotland's towns, cities, villages and islands to a third decade of SNP government. So I am going to do what's right by my country, Scotland.
Did you speak to either West Keating or Andy Burnham before giving this speech, and would you expect others to also come forward and repeat your message?
Well, I've spoken to many figures both in and out of the Cabinet. It is for them to decide their own view and what they choose to do or not do. I'm making my own decision based upon my own view, being my own man.
And I'm going to treat with others.
Not at all. And it's for others to do their own decisions and make their own mind it about what they feel is tolerant. This isn't good enough. It needs to change, and I'm going to do what's right by my country, Scotland. Catherine from Transport.
Is your position anyone is better than Keir Starmer? And secondly, are you comfortable being the public face that pulls the trigger on the Prime Minister when some of your colleagues, including the Welsh First Minister, already appear to be rolling back on this?
Well, first of all, as I said, I'm going to do what I think is right by my country, Scotland. This is not a coordination. I'm not speaking to others about what they do or don't do. That is for other people to decide. Ultimately, it's for those in number 10, those around the cabinet table, and those in the UK Labour Party to decide what happens next, the process, the timeline, or who comes next. That's not a matter for me. The only job that I'm concentrating on is making sure that we change the government here in Scotland, remove John Swinney and the SNP from office, so we can take a different approach here in Scotland.
If this was wrong, will you resign if Keir Starmer doesn't step down?
I am standing to be Scotland's First Minister and be open about my view. I can choose to keep my view a secret. I can choose to brief in private. That's not the approach I take. I'm doing what I think is right. I'm doing what I believe is my first priority and first loyalty to my country, Scotland, and I'm being my own man, making my own decisions. It's for other people to decide their own view. I'll take Paul from the Daily Record.
You've always had a relationship with the Prime Minister, so how did he respond when you told him what you're going to do today? And is it possible for you to win the election if he stays in post?
Let me first of all say that there's probably no one in Scottish politics that's had a better relationship with Keir Starmer or a closer friendship with Keir Starmer than I have. He is someone that I have campaigned alongside, worked alongside for the last 5 years in my role as leader, someone that I campaigned ferociously for to make sure we could get rid of a Tory government, and someone who I have supported in the last 18 months. So does this cause me personal hurt and pain? Of course it does. This man is someone that I regard as a friend and who I have a certain level of loyalty to. But my first priority and my first loyalty has to be to my country, Scotland. And that's the decision I have made. In terms of the election on the 7th of May, the two candidates for First Minister are me and John Swinney. And that's the choice people have in Scotland. A third decade of the SNP, with all the failure that we have seen, or a First Minister that's going to put Scotland first, Scotland's towns, cities and villages first, and Scotland's NHS and public services first. That's the platform I'll be standing on, and that's what I hope to persuade people of over the next few months. Mark from the Sun. Oh, sorry, Mark, let's see you there.
Going back to what you just said about your knowledge of Peter Mandelson, you describing that tweet as your old friend. So it's not like you just met on that one occasion as ambassador. So how long have you known Peter Mandelson? How long have you known about the links to Jeffrey Epstein? And why did you demur when you were asked to meet him on the steps? And to go back to the other question, if Keir Starmer stays, will you go?
So I have known Peter since around 2021. I obviously spoke to him in Washington when I was there to defend and protect Scotland's interests, partly through Tartweek, partly through the negotiations at the US-UK trade deal and all the importance that has for our country. I didn't appoint him US ambassador, he was appointed as US ambassador, and it was right that I had those conversations with him to protect Scotland's interests. But is that something, someone that I want to be associated with? No. He has betrayed this country. He has betrayed the party he was once a member of, and he has betrayed the public in terms of his actions and his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. And the other point you make, it is now for others to decide any process, any timeline, and who the next Prime Minister may be. I am going to spend all my time concentrating on removing John Swinney, changing the government here in Scotland, and making sure we deliver the new direction Scotland needs.
And if those,
Thank you all so much.
people decide he should stay, will you go?
Well, that's for them to decide. I'm only answerable to one group of people. That's the people of Scotland. That's who I serve. That's who I stand for. That's who I'm campaigning for. And that's the people I want to deliver for. I only have one relationship and one loyalty that matters most to me, and that's to Scotland. Thank you.
So, is the Scottish Labour position we don't really know yet? Because he's saying I want Starmer gone, also I'm my own man. So the Scottish Labour position is what? Presumably we're not going to say I've got to go.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Child maintenance system is being used, as the Minister knows, to abuse women after they've left their relationship. One of my constituents lost her home after she was manipulated into selling it. Her ex-partner put the money into a joint account. He then bought the new house in his own name, left her, and is now living the life of Riley while she is doing 3 jobs and cannot get a penny out of him in child maintenance. Now, I've written to the Minister to ask to meet with my constituent and 2 other women. Will she please agree to meet with us so that we can give those women the visibility they need in holding the men into account?
Minister.
I thank the Honourable Lady, and her constituents' experience is not one that is unfamiliar, I'm sure, actually, to every Member of Parliament who's ever dealt with the Child Support Agency, and that is why it was included in the Violence Against Women and Girls strategy, to ensure that child maintenance and how that gets used to abuse women is no longer able to happen. But of course, like always, I'm more than happy to meet with her and her constituents.
Mr. Speaker, around 1 in 8 women are victims of sexual assault, domestic abuse and stalking in the year to March 2025. Victim support are concerned that ultimately there is not enough focus in the strategy, particularly the funding is not matching increasing demand. What assurances can she give my victims in Bath who are victims of stalking that there will actually be enough resource and enough funding for those services?
Minister.
I thank the Honourable Lady, and actually I pay credit to stalking victims and stalking organisations who took out a super complaint actually against, I think it was under the previous government, with regard to many different areas of what stalking legislation needed to change, and this government is enacting on every single one of the recommendations of that. And all I can say is that the Violence Against Women and Girls strategy that was announced had more than £1 billion worth of investment, of which £550 million will go into victim services, and I can assure her, as a victim of stalking myself, that I take it very, very seriously.
Katie Lamb, Shadow Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When the Violence Against Women and Girls strategy was announced, I asked the Safeguarding Minister whether she had considered the impact that mass migration is having on the safety of women and girls and why it was not mentioned. I wasn't sure from her response then what the answer is. Could she explain, please, whether the government will address this issue specifically as the strategy is implemented, and if not, why not?
Minister.
What I would say to the Honourable Lady and to everybody is that I don't care who you are or where you come from. If you abuse women in our country, we will come for you. And what I would also say is that there isn't any reliable data that I can't pull a lever in the Home Office and get the reliable data. And that is why, under this government, unlike the previous one, we will start collecting it.
Caller Daniel.
Question number 5, please, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We understand how important the details of these proposals are to people. That is precisely why the government opened a public consultation to gather views on the proposals. Once the consultation closes, we will analyse those responses, which will help inform the development of the final earned settlement model. We've also committed to publishing the impact assessments for the settlement proposals, as well as the government's response to the consultation.
Caller Daniel.
Mr. Speaker, 300,000 children living legally in the UK will face a decade of living in limbo under the government's earned settlement proposals, according to new research out this week by the IPPR. Their wait for settled immigration status will be extended by at least 5 years, during which many families will face no recourse to public funds restrictions. We know that that raises the risk of homelessness and destitution. So how does the Minister reconcile that poverty-increasing measure with the government's new child poverty strategy, which says that reducing child poverty is a moral imperative?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, firstly, when migrants enter the UK on economic routes, it is expected that they'll be able to support their families. Right. We are maintaining that principle, and it's right that we look into how we can do that better in response to circumstances. We'll continue to ensure that migrant children are considered when making decisions on requirements for settlement. On the bigger picture, we've seen record, unprecedented influx of migration under the previous government that will put a massive strain on public services. So it's right that we extend this from 5 to 10 years. That's what the British people expect. That's what you hear on the doors. That's what your constituents are saying too.
Dr. Peter Prince.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question number 6. Sorry.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We work very closely with our allies, but EU designations are a matter for the EU. It's the government's long-standing position not to comment on the detail of intelligence and security matters, including if specific organisations are being considered for proscription in the UK. But I can say that in concert with our international partners, we will use all appropriate tools at our disposal to protect the UK from state threats.
Dr. Peter Prince.
Thank you. I thank the Minister for his answer. So, given Iranian malign influence on the streets of London, its web of proxies, the menace it poses to world peace, and recent reports that as many as 30,000 protesters may have been killed by the IRGC, will the UK actually join the EU, the United States, Canada and Ukraine in imposing further sanctions? And is it not time for our government to formally proscribe the IRGC, who are surely not the servants of the Iranian people?
Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, he's right to raise his concerns in the way that he does. I can say to him and to the House that on the 13th of January, the Foreign Secretary set out the action that the government is taking in coordination with allies in response to the consistent threat that the Iranian regime poses to stability, security and freedom. And last week, the Foreign Secretary also announced a further sanctions package targeting 10 individuals and one organisation involved in human rights abuses in Iran. We're continuing to monitor the situation very closely, and we urge Iran to protect fundamental freedoms, including access to information and communications.
So, Julian Lewis.
Does the Minister accept that the IRGC is responsible for many acts of terrorism? And whilst we appreciate the difficulty that arises from it being a state organisation and the reluctance to prescribe a state organisation, isn't it a fact that Jonathan Hall, the independent reviewer of terrorism legislation, has come up with a formula to allow this to happen? If so, why doesn't the government bring this forward with maximum speed?
Well, Mr. Speaker, we're very grateful to Jonathan Hall for the work that he has done, and I can tell the right honourable gentleman that we're taking forward all of his recommendations on strengthening our state threats powers, including the development of a prescription-like tool for state threats. That will allow us to ban activity and the operations of foreign state-backed organisations.
Julie Minns.
Question number 8, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With asylum claims falling in Europe and rising here, we must reduce the incentives that pull people here. The permanence of refugee status in this country is clearly a pull factor, and so we are making it temporary. The ability to melt into our illegal economy lures people here, so we have lifted immigration raids to record levels, and effective removals send a clear message, and returns are now up by around a quarter under this government.
Mr. Speaker, illegal immigration, illegal working and illegal trading frequently go hand in hand and too often manifest in the proliferation of dodgy shops on our high streets. Now, whilst I welcome the shop raids in my Carlisle constituency last summer, without action to tackle illegality at source, the police and trading standards face a never-ending game of whack-a-mole. Can the Minister please assure my constituents in Carlisle that this government will redouble its efforts to clamp down on both illegal immigration and illegal working?
Well, I can give my honourable friend that reassurance. Illegal working undermines honest employers, undercuts local wages and fuels organised immigration crime, and this government will not stand for it. Since coming to power, enforcement action nationwide has increased with an 83% rise in illegal working arrests, and we will be stepping up that action even further in the year ahead.
Father of the House, Sir Edward Lee.
One of the main reasons behind this false narrative that Britain is both broken is people's sense of despair that neither this government nor the previous government could deal with illegal migrants. It's simply driving our people mad. So just so may I give this advice to the government, if she'll forgive me, they're not going to solve this problem by getting rid of the Prime Minister or anything like that. What they're going to do is finally deal with the pull factor. And the only thing that will work is to arrest, detain and deport anybody who arrives illegally in this country and have a temporary derogation from any convention that prevents us doing it. If they do that, there'll be so much more confidence in the nation, the Prime Minister will be more popular and people won't drown anymore.
Well, look, Mr. Speaker, what I would say gently to the honourable gentleman, look, I'm always willing to listen to advice from wherever it may come from, but I would point out that in 14 years under his party in government, we didn't see any such action. And it is very easy, I think, to say from the sidelines, just deport everybody. If it was so easy to derogate from international obligations, I'm pretty sure the previous administration would have done it. That they're only now saying it from the sidelines, I think, says a lot about them and their attitude to government. There is no one silver bullet in dealing with the problems of illegal migration, and that is why I'm taking action across every potential forum, that is both on changing our human rights laws, passing legislation later this year on the application of Article 8, dealing with our appeals processes, absolutely talking about reform of the European Convention on Human Rights, which we are doing, getting illegal working raids up. All of these things are important steps to try to get this system under control. I am determined that we will deal with the problem of illegal migration, but there is no one silver bullet, and that is why I'm taking action across all fronts.
Katie Lamb, Shadow Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Last week, The Times reported that companies and company directors who have previously abused the work visa system have been allowed to continue sponsoring visas despite the government's promise of a clampdown. One social care business has been able to sponsor 116 visas despite being caught hiring illegally. As the Home Secretary just said herself, being able to work here illegally is one of the greatest pull factors. So what message does she think this sends to companies that break the rules?
Well, I think what the Shadow Minister should have first done is apologised for being part of an administration that actually opened the social care route, that was open to such horrifying levels of abuse. That route was closed by this government. That was the right action to take. And since we've been in government, 1,000 sponsor licences have been revoked. We will continue to take action. We are already following up on the newspaper investigation that she references, and we will keep revoking licences so that only legitimate businesses with proper jobs are able to sponsor workers into our country.
Max Wilkinson, Liberal Democrat spokesperson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. British people have watched in horror over the past weeks as President Trump's ICE squads have murdered, kidnapped and oppressed people. Even infants and children have not escaped this rough treatment. Now, the Conservatives have suggested they would like to introduce a removals force styled on ICE, and we can only guess what the Honourable Member for Clacton would do if he was in charge, even if he concedes that ICE has gone too far on occasion. So will the Home Secretary condemn Trump's ICE squads, and will she reassure us that we will not see ICE squads on the streets of Britain?
Well, Mr. Speaker, unlike I think most of Westminster, I'm not plagued with America brain, and I don't spend any of my time worrying about what's happening over in the States. But as the Home Secretary, I focus on my day job, which is protecting people in our country. And he will know full well that we do not have anything like the sorts of arrangements that we've seen over in America. But without having armed immigration enforcement, we've already got record removals to just under 60,000 since we've been in government. We will go further, but we will do so in line with the arrangements we already have in place and our British values.
Sir Gavin Williamson.
Number 10, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
The murder of Martha Giles in 1959 was particularly horrific, and I can only imagine the pain and suffering that her family have been through, given that the case is still ongoing and there has never been justice. I am advised that decisions around opening or closing the National Archives records on the murder of Martha Giles are a matter for the Metropolitan Police Service and not for us, but I'm very happy to facilitate the introductions that he might want with the Met Police.
Sir Gavin.
I know that the Minister is a deeply compassionate lady, and on the 12th of February 1959, Martha Giles was brutally murdered, leaving her work at New Cross Hospital in Wolverhampton, and she left behind 5 children. There's only one of those children that's still alive today, Mrs. Edwards, and she desperately seeks answers. I know that it's not within the Minister's gift, but if there's any way of being able to convene officials and officers in the Metropolitan Police, just to be able to bring some closure on this awful chapter, it would be so deeply appreciated.
Can I thank him and again offer my condolences to Martha's family, who have been looking for justice for many, many, many decades. I am happy within the bounds of what I am allowed to do it for the right honourable member, and we'll make sure we make the appropriate introductions.
Dr. Ellison.
Question number 13, please, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We are investing a record £140 million in state-of-the-art technology to make our communities safer. This includes rollout of live facial recognition, a technology that is already transforming policing. Investing in technology means more time for the police to be out where we want them, on the streets, fighting and deterring crime in our communities.
Dr. Ellison.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I recently met with Home Office colleagues to discuss the use of synthetic cathinones, often referred to as monkey dust, in Stoke-on-Trent. These substances cause significant harm to users and indeed to communities, and they are frequently sold via the dark web and imported through the post. So can the Minister provide an update on their work with the National Crime Agency and Royal Mail to detect illicit substances using technology, and advise whether existing opioid detection methods can be adapted or applied to synthetic cathinones?
Well,
I thank my honourable friend for raising the scourge of synthetic cathinones. Let me assure her that the work between the National Crime Agency, Royal Mail and others continues at pace. The use of synthetic drugs is a concerning development in the global drugs market, but this government and law enforcement are taking action, and we continue to innovate and seek new methods for screening and identifying drugs using emerging technologies, including AI, to tackle this challenge.
Lincoln Job.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I recently visited a major retailer in my Spelthorne constituency, and they reported that that corporately their systems are so clunky that to get information to the police when they have evidence of shoplifting, they had to resort to sending an officer around to the thing to film on their body cam footage from the corporates, the retailers' own systems. So as well as sorting out the technology within the police, would the Home Secretary also encourage and reach into those big corporate retailer chains so that we can have a seamless flow of information in order to drive down shoplifting?
Well, I'm very glad, I'm very pleased he raises that particular issue. I'm happy to look into the detail that he's seen in his own constituency. Let me assure him there is a lot of work happening with retailers. I know that there are different platforms that are being adopted. The pace of technological innovation in this area is really very quick indeed, and we will do everything we can to make sure all of these systems are absolutely joined up and that the police are in the best possible position to go after these criminals as quickly as possible.
Question 14, please, Mr. Speaker.
This government is restoring neighbourhood policing with nearly 2,400 additional neighbourhood officers in post since last September, and we're ensuring that every community has named contactable officers dedicated to tackling the issues facing their communities. Of course, the provision of in-person services such as front counters are for local police to decide. I want those police on our streets catching criminals.
Mr. Smart.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Communities like Woodley in my Hazel Grove constituency has been plagued by shoplifting on the precinct. We've had far too much antisocial behaviour, and recently we've had some really worrying violent incidents as well. Bredbury Police Station, though, was closed by the Mayor a few years ago, and we know many people want to access police services in person for all sorts of accessibility reasons, just because it's much more reassuring to have that conversation in person. Police also tell us that they can pick up on things in person that they just can't when they receive an online form. We Lib Dems have a plan for a police counter in every community, in places like supermarkets where people already are. What steps is the government taking to ensure that communities like Woodley can access police services in person?
Minister.
So every ward will have a named community officer that they can contact and get in touch with, which I think is the priority here. She talks about retail crime, which, as I said earlier, increased by 60% in the last 2 years of the Conservative government. So by us taking steps, for example, by making sure that the £200 rule that the previous government had in place, so that any theft in a shop under £200 was not even investigated by the police, we are scrapping that, and we are making sure that there are more officers in our community. I'm sure there are innovative things that can be done in terms of making sure that visibility is there, but having a named police officer that you can contact in your ward is massive progress on what we had before.
Mr. Speaker, Humberside Police and trade unions representing Humberside Police have raised concerns about potential closures of counters under Operation Balance. Can she offer any reassurance further to her remarks that will give assurance to my local community that they will be able to contact local police as and when they need to?
Minister.
Absolutely. Can I thank my honourable friend? And of course, people are worried about making sure they have access to their police officers, particularly when they need them, which is why we're introducing targets to make sure the response is quick and there when we need them, and why we are putting more money into policing. Police forces themselves will have £796 million additional funding this year, which is a 4.5% cash increase and a 2.3% real terms increase. And I'm happy to make sure and work with her to make sure our neighbourhood guarantee is being delivered in her constituency.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question number 16.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our cross-cutting government strategy has committed £1 billion over the next 3 years to support victims of VOG, including domestic abuse. Some of what is in that includes £30 million uplift under this government on refuge and safe accommodation for victims of domestic abuse, and also millions extra on funding the DA perpetrator schemes, specifically targeting the most high risk of harm repeat offenders.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. After years of enduring domestic abuse, a constituent of mine came forward to Thames Valley Police. She was badly let down by process and communication failures, resulting in the perpetrator avoiding prosecution, despite a positive charging decision. She is now worried for her own personal safety and has a PTSD diagnosis. So I appreciate what the Minister has said she's doing to help victims of domestic violence, but what more can she do to make sure that they're taken seriously so that the victims do not have the same experience as my constituent?
Minister.
The honourable gentleman makes an incredibly good point, is that we would save ourselves a lot of time and people a lot of harm if we just got it right in the first place, which is why this government has invested £13.1 million specifically into a policing centre for violence against women and girls that seeks to look at all of the gaps in the system within policing and seeks to make a nationwide standards that they will be held accountable to.
Samantha Niblin.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. In my constituency of South Derbyshire, I'm grateful to Derbyshire Wish, who provide domestic violence and abuse services and who use my offices for free in order to speak with victims of domestic violence and abuse in a safe and neutral environment. I wonder if the Minister can tell me what she is doing to tackle domestic violence and abuse in rural communities where isolation plays a significant part in this going undetected.
The Honourable, I pay tribute to the organisation in her constituency and across our constituencies, and tribute to her for doing that work within her own surgery. I would encourage the same of everybody, and I'm sure many do that. What I would say is that the rural communities experience domestic abuse the same as people in urban areas, but they have different needs that need to be met, and that is why this government, and I invite the Honourable Lady to join me in this, and any members in the House, will work with members from rural areas to look at really specifically what needs to be done to make sure that that isolation is, when police standards are written, fully taken into account.
Mark Pritchard.
How the police respond to domestic violence incidents at the first instance oftentimes is critical for the criminal justice process, but also interpreting the events on the ground. I know the Minister, who in my view does a very good job, by the way, likes to look at best practice across the world. Would she look at best practice in Europe where academics have proven that where there is a male and female officer responding to these incidents, that the process of prosecuting is often far easier as a result of having a mixed gender patrol where possible?
Minister.
I thank the honourable gentleman for that suggestion, and I welcome and will make sure that our officials look up this particular study. I will do anything that shows an improvement in this area, and it never surprises me that actually gender parity in things makes things better. That's also another thing I've committed my life to.
Pam Cox.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I welcome the Government's determination to tackle violence against women and girls and to support victims. Would the Minister agree with me that improvements to our family justice system as well as to our criminal justice system are going to play a really important part in that?
Minister.
I thank the Honourable Lady, and I think that whilst this is Home Office questions and people will rightly bring their issues with regard to policing across the country, around only 10% of victims of domestic abuse ever see the inside of a police station, ever interact with policing. So making sure that every other part of our system, and the family court system and the family justice system and our civil courts, absolutely have to play a part, and that is why they are a fundamental part of the violence against women and girls.
Question 17, Mr Speaker.
Minister.
Mr Speaker, my honourable friend is a great champion for Huddersfield's High Street, and I'm pleased to be able to tell her that tackling money laundering is key to delivering on this government's mission to make our streets safer and to deliver economic growth. The new High Streets Illegality Task Force will bring together departments and agencies to systemically disrupt money laundering and related crime on the High Street, while new funding will boost trading standards capabilities and fund an increase in law enforcement officers.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Police operations last year, including in West Yorkshire, saw hundreds arrested and thousands of high street shops raided across the country. So can I ask what further steps are being taken to tackle money laundering, including connecting information across agencies and flagging suspicious entities so such operations can be closed down quickly?
Well, Mr Speaker, I'm grateful to her, and we are taking more steps. And the new High Streets Task Force will look at whether the current data sharing between agencies in supporting enforcement teams is appropriate in order to maximise our response to be as effective as it possibly can be. The Government will also publish a new anti-money laundering and asset recovery strategy this summer. This will set out further ambitious measures to strengthen our fight against money laundering, including better sharing and exploitation of financial information across the system.
Chair of the Select Committee, Dame Karen Bradley.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. Organised criminality is behind much of the money laundering that we see on our high streets, and that's why my committee last week launched an inquiry looking at organised criminality and the role it plays in the crime we see in neighbourhoods up and down the country. Can the Minister set out what support the Home Office is giving to the National Crime Agency in regards to this issue, and how does he envisage the National Crime Agency working with the 12 mega forces that are envisaged in the White Paper and the National Police Force?
Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm very grateful to the chair of the committee for setting out the work that they're going to be doing. I have long believed of the importance of the work that we need to do, working very closely with the National Crime Agency to tackle serious organised crime, which is a blight on all of our communities. We're working very closely with the NCA to make sure that they've got the appropriate level of resourcing and the correct strategic priorities. I meet with the Director every single week. We'd be very happy to cooperate closely with the work that she's doing, and she's right to mention the importance of police reform. Obviously, we're looking very carefully at that process, and we'll make sure that we configure ourselves in a way that will maximise the ability of the National Crime Agency to tackle serious organised crime.
We now come to topicals. Rupert Lowe.
Topical question number 1, Mr. Speaker.
Justice Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, this government pledged to restore order and control to our borders, and our work is taking effect. Since we took office, removals